What's up YouTube, Jeff back again from SammyGuru.com, and today another very exciting Samsung video for you guys. Today I have something very special for you. Today I have One UI 8 versus One UI 8.5. Here on the left I have my S25 Ultra US unlocked model, which is running One UI 8. And on the right I have my unlocked international model, which I was able to get the early test build of One UI 8.5 running on. Today we're going to run down all the differences we found. This is probably going to be a long video, so grab some snacks and get ready. I'll try to make it as quick as I can. Before we get started, do want to remind you guys, make sure you check out the website if you're not already following us, SammyGuru.com. We cover the latest Samsung news, tips, tricks, tutorials, and reviews. We've been covering One UI 8.5 for the last week. We pretty much had the exclusive on the original kind of leaks before anybody else. So if you guys bookmark the website, you can also set us as a preferred source on Google News. If you're in the US, you can get a free mystery box with your Galaxy S26 pre-order. We do this every single year. Been doing it for 5 years. You'll get a free case, cleaning kit, desktop phone stand, other randomly inserted goodies, a 65-watt charger in every box this year, also USB-C wired earbuds. Bring back the retro unboxing experience. Tap on the S26 Ultra box, put in your phone number, your email, or both. You'll get a link to order on launch day through SammyGuru Rewards. Use our affiliate link to order. That's how we fund the program. It's the only requirement. We cover all the shipping costs. We take all of that out of our affiliate revenue. You guys get cool stuff. We fund our work here on YouTube and the website. Check that out below if you're interested. All right, so now let's go ahead and get into the main event because I am very, very excited. Let's go into the settings first and take a look at the difference in these two settings pages here. On the left, you see One UI 8. Again, 8.5 is over here. Now you'll notice the settings have been redesigned. They're much more, I don't know what you'd say, condensed. They don't have as much information. You can see they don't have all these kind of descriptors below the titles. You've got the search bar, which is now at the bottom, kind of using this floating menu, floating action button approach that's been seen in Material 3 as well as in iOS 26. And so Samsung has adopted that approach. Otherwise, most of the familiar settings that you've seen are there, but they've condensed things, redesigned it using that approach. And a lot of the things throughout the menus are that way as well. If you go into search, you'll see here that they've reorganized this a little bit as well, although most of it is pretty familiar to what you've seen before. Just some changes to kind of the way the chips look. Here they got these circular icons as well on the search menu. So a couple things there that have been done inside the settings menu for One UI 8.5. And we'll be going into each of these menus as we go in the video. So if you want to see something more in detail, I'm sure I'll show it. And if I don't, you can always drop a line to me over on X and I'll try to get to your request. The next thing I want to show, I'm just going to do a high level overview here, is the quick panel. This is a really big one. This has been changed to be much more customizable, and we'll do a full deep dive into all the different customization you can do over here in One UI 8.5. But one of the things you can see is they've also added some extra padding on some of these. You can see here that they've kind of changed the way that this is organized a little bit as well. And now, again, you can basically change and make these tiles any way you want. The toggles can be vertical, and there's this really cool animation, which I showed off. I'll show it really quick now because I love it so much. If you long press on one of these vertical ones, it makes this little animation into the horizontal menu. I'll show you guys how to customize this fully later, but it is much, much more customizable than what we currently have in One UI 8. They also added some additional gradient blur, and like I said, some padding things there. Now, if we go up here, inside of the live notifications, you guys will notice gradient blur has been added to the live notifications, which I think looks a heck of a lot better. You'll notice that's been added throughout the UI. There's pretty much new gradient blur. You go into the notifications here. Once again, you will see on the left, One UI 8, not much gradient blur, a lot more on these notification panels over here in One UI 8.5. They reorganized some other things, which is a little bit more subtle. If you go into a page like, let's say, the Play Store, let's go into an app, the icons here at the very top are much more bold. I'll actually zoom in on that so you guys can see all of your status bar icons are much bolder. And so it's a little bit hard to see from the video, but you will be able to see it in the close-up I'll show you. You can also see up here in the status bar, you do not have to have the battery pill anymore. There's a way to turn that on and off. When we go into the power menu later, I'll show you that. But here I do not have the battery pill in One UI 8.5. That is a new change as well. Now let me quickly show you guys dark mode because I know some people want to see dark mode. So let's actually go in and set this to dark mode on both of them. So you can see the differences as we go into dark mode. There you can see the quick panel. If we go into dark mode, this doesn't change a ton, but you still have some gradient blur there. You can see there is a difference. If you go into your notifications, you can see here Still a huge difference on the gradient blur. And if we go, let's go to the lock screens just for fun. You guys will actually see this double tap animation here. It takes a little longer. I don't know if this is on purpose or just a bug, but you guys can see your notifications here on the lock screen as well with some additional gradient blur in One UI 8.5. I tried to keep the wallpaper, everything as consistent as I could. Obviously not everything is the same on these two phones because this is my main phone on the left and this is a phone that I mainly use for these type of purposes for testing, etc. Also the settings, let's take a look at the settings in dark mode just so we can kind of go in depth and see everything. Here's your settings in dark mode, One UI 8.5 versus 8. Looks a lot cleaner in One UI 8.5 in my personal opinion, although there may be a few readability things to work out with those floating action buttons, which we'll see in some of the other examples later on as well. Let's take a look at the home screen settings here, because there have been things that have changed in the home screen settings. You'll notice over here, you've got your app size. Here you have app size on the home and the app screen. Change this little, like the little graphics. See here, very similar though. You've got the 3 different sizes. Just change the way it looks a little bit. You got app labels and widget labels. App labels for featured widgets. You can see here, it's basically the same, just change some of the text. I mean, most of this stuff has not really changed a lot. I do have Home Up running on my main device, which doesn't work on 8.5. So some of these options are from Home Up, but you can see not a lot has changed in terms of the home settings in here. You've got mainly the same settings that you had before. Swipe down for notification panel, add new apps to home screen. So just these things at the top, for the most part, with the home screen settings have changed in this case. But not everything is the same on the home screen. If, for instance, you have the jumbo folders, the enlarged folders, you'll notice that now in the bottom right corner in One UI 8.5, you see the overflow apps that you have in the background there in this bottom right corner. Over here, it has the 3 dots. So you can see here, I've got extra applications. Also, for some reason, the color, you see how the color doesn't persist in One UI 8.5? Both of these have the green color, but when I open it, this one does not have the green color when it's open. Also, you'll notice the animation is different. One UI 8.5 has a new animation for this folder open, and you have to long press to get into the settings, whereas here you can change the color directly from the folder being open. There's a slightly different menu for editing the color, the opacity, and all that kind of stuff for the folder itself. So that's a little bit of a change for folders. People asked about the regular size folders inside the drawer. These animations, as far as I can tell, are the same. Maybe slight difference in the speed, but they do seem to be very similar in this case. Now, I'll show you guys the app open animations. They do seem a little bit different. Actually, I already know. I forgot to go in here. Let's go into Good Lock just for the purposes of this video. I know I'm going to regret it later because I use Home Up for everything and I have a lot of things set up the way I want them on my personal device, but let's go in here and just turn off Home Up entirely. So all my gestures, kind of gesture settings and tuning is off. Let's see the app open. I'll upload some 4K 60 videos because I shoot in 4K 30 here. My videos on YouTube. I mean, they're both pretty smooth. Just some slight changes there. You guys can see here in the app drawer, search bar, sort and settings here. We already went in there. Just some of those animations, very similar. Some people wanted to see some requests. There were some requests. Let me turn dark mode back off. But there were some requests to see how these sliders kind of animate up and down. Seems a slightly different animation, but it seems to be, I don't know, it doesn't seem worse or better. Someone was saying that it was janky in One UI 8. I don't necessarily know about that, but the sliders seem to work fine. I mean, here, they seem to work the same way with the overlay, so I don't see a huge difference in terms of that animation. I certainly haven't noticed much lag in the time that I've been using One UI 8.5. It seems very smooth considering that this isn't even a beta, it's just an alpha build. I've been pretty impressed with it overall, and it seems great to me on that front. Now there is a new software update screen. Let's go into the software update menu so you guys can get a look at this. This is software update on One UI 8, and when you open One UI 8.5, you immediately get greeted with this beautiful splash page that has this gradient logo. Hit check for updates, it'll check for updates. Obviously, I'm on this early test build, so you're not gonna see an update come through. At least it'd be very weird if you did. If you tap on the info button, then you can get your information, your version, and then up here you can see you can turn on auto download or not. So you've got an all new software update screen. Icon updates, people have asked me about icon updates. I really haven't noticed any. So if you look through here like gallery, my files, like if you look in the Samsung folder, basically all these icons look the same. With One UI 7, we got a ton of redesigned icons. So I think a lot of people were thinking maybe there would be some icon changes for One UI 8.5. Doesn't look like it. Usually Samsung doesn't change stuff like that too often, which is why One UI 7 was such a huge paradigm shift. I don't really see any in this particular case. We do have some new changes for the power button menu. So let's go. Okay, so here's the power menu. Let's go into the side button settings. There are some new options here where you have in your double press and your long press. So if you go into long press, you still got your digital assistant here. You can see you've got Google. Of course, you can also do Chat GPT. If you go into your double press though, there are additional options here. You can see a lot of these are there still on the One UI 8. We've got quick launch Samsung Wallet. You've got your Samsung Capture that's on the same on both sides, secure folder. There's a couple of things that have been added, which is always nice to see in terms of the power button menu. Lock screen changes. Let's take a quick look at the lock screen on each device. Go back to the lock screen. So if we long press, there are a couple of new things in One UI 8.5. You guys see I'm using Lockstar on both with those animations. Down here, if we go to the clock on both sides, you have the animated clock, of course, on both of these. And you do see that the animated clock shows as new in One UI 8.5, even though it isn't. There's a couple of new clock styles here. If you scroll through one by one, you'll see a few new clock styles that are not in One UI 8. So I'll just scroll through. You guys can see a couple of those. I have some from Clockface as well. There's a couple here towards the end that they just slightly modified. There's nothing crazy new though. And then I'm not exactly sure. You guys see this little water drop right here? It appears that this water drop like changes. I don't actually know what it does. I mean, I know that this right here adapts the color from the wallpaper. It looks like if you adapt the color from the wallpaper, this makes it darker. I thought it did something more interesting. Maybe it's supposed to add like a liquid effect, but it doesn't really seem to do anything crazy right now. That's the only other real change I've seen. I will tell you the adaptive clock is still very buggy, which in my opinion is pretty embarrassing for Samsung considering how long they've had to get their act together with this. There's not a lot of other changes. You can see I have Lockstar on both. Surprisingly, Lockstar does work in this One UI 8.5 build. Most of the good lock modules do not work, which isn't too surprising. Let me show you guys where you can get that battery option in here. So the battery, if you go to notifications and you go to status bar, and you'll see battery percentage and One UI 8 is there. But you can turn that off. You still get the pill. Here, it's really weird. It says show battery percentage, but this is off and it still shows it. If you turn this on in this build, it does nothing. Show battery background, I have it on, but it's actually not on. And if you turn this off, then it shows you the battery. This battery shape is actually slightly longer than the one in One UI 8. I don't think people have pointed this out, but it's actually not as fat as the one in One UI 8, which I think you guys can probably see. And the percentage is a little bolder in there. So right now the options don't really make a lot of sense, but you can also have the percentage there with no battery icon at all, if that's what you want. Now we do have some updates to the weather app as well and the widget. The widget shows some more robust information. There's some slight tweaks. Again, there's nothing really crazy here that you will see in the widget just looking at it here, but it shows some richer information. In fact, earlier today, I took a screenshot of this. Let me see if I can just find it and I'll show you guys. Actually right here, storms continuing through 1 p.m. Used to have this kind of widget option before. It looks like they just kind of brought it back and baked it into the stock weather widget. Otherwise, there's not a lot of crazy changes here. So basically a lot more rich information in terms of the weather widget is what I've noticed. There isn't anything super mind-blowing there, but it is a small change for One UI 8.5. And we have a new device care interface. Let's go into device care. You guys can take a look at this one. This is a pretty big overhaul that Samsung did as well. Device care, device care. You can see here, it's got a little more gradient text here. The big smiley face is gone. The optimize is no longer blue. It's a little more streamlined, kind of condensed, a little bit smaller text. Still the same kind of information. You got your performance profile, auto optimization. As far as I can tell, nothing has really changed there. Inside the battery menu though, you do have brand new power saving information. We can actually take a look at that right now. So if you go into battery, your power saving options are now slightly different. Standard and maximum, you can see right here, they just reorganized the way things look. Dark mode just turned on because that was part of one of my settings. And then of course you also have the option for maximum, which you also had over here as well. For maximum, you can turn this on and it'll allow you to allow certain apps, essential apps you can allow just like you can in 8.5. So they reorganized the way it works slightly, and just the UI of power saving. Nothing too crazy. If you do turn on power saving though, on One UI 8, you get that little leaf icon, which you guys can probably see right there. But if you go to One UI 8.5 and you turn on power saving, the little leaf icon is now outside of the battery pill. So it looks a little bit different, but the same general idea. Power saving has just been kind of reorganized a little bit, but you still have the maximum and standard options, and they're very similar. They just changed the organization. Okay, so that was a kind of general overview of everything that's different on a higher level. Let's take a look at the custom quick panel now and what you can do. If you go into edit, now instead of being siloed into these like longer shapes, you can edit each of these individual toggles, and what you can do with them is actually fairly impressive. So if you go in here, I'm just getting used to kind of, you can move this wherever you want, first of all, but then also you can see here, you can make it smaller. Each one of these can kind of be changed as you see fit. Now, not all of them can be changed, any old way you want. But if you move this, let's say I move this nearby devices, I'm going to end up reorganizing this and making it look bad probably. You can see some of them cannot be expanded as far as you like. You can only expand them a certain amount, whereas other ones can be expanded fully. But like I said, it's still much better than over here where you couldn't resize these at all. You could just touch and drag them around, like you could just reorder them. You couldn't drag them. And of course, these ones that are horizontal, you can actually make them into vertical sliders for the volume and for the brightness. It can't be done for everything though. Like this one here with your smart remote, you can't just do anything you want. Now, if you get this, you can expand this just like you could before. You can drag this down, make it larger if you want. Let me put this back because it's gonna drive me insane that it's not working properly. Down here, you can add a new control. So just like over here, where you can add new controls there, you can see it also crashes quite a lot. That's one thing I've noticed with this new quick panel, is if you try to add a control, it will crash. You can add these individual toggles, which normally over here, you would do that from here. A lot of them are grayed out though. Even some that I'm not using are grayed out. So this is still a work in progress. Not everything can be used from these toggles right now, because again, this is an early alpha build. So you can definitely reorganize your quick settings, make it look how you want. I love the vertical sliders, lets you organize things a little bit better. But keep in mind, not everything can be resized yet, and not just any way you want. It's not like a free-for-all, but it's a lot more than One UI 8. And it does look a lot better. I like the vertical ones. And like I said, this touch and hold animation, they can make it a little smoother, and probably the animation could be changed a little bit so that it emanates from the right place, but it's a good start. And I think it's a really nice change that they've made to the quick panel. Now, if you have too much information down here, it does still kind of seem to fall off just like it does in One UI 8. So I'd really like to see Samsung fix that, but who knows if they'll do that in the long run. Up next, let's talk about Auracast, because Auracast has been completely revamped and renamed. If you don't know what Auracast is, I wouldn't blame you, because really, they don't ever talk about what Auracast is in One UI 8, and it's really hard to find any information about Auracast, because if you go into even the sound settings, and let's say you knew what it was and you search for it, like even if you look for Auracast, it's kind of hard to find in the settings. You see like it's not anywhere in here. It's in connections is where they have it. So broadcast sound using Auracast, and has this menu, and it's kind of confusing. Well, Samsung made this a lot easier to understand, and they even added a quick toggle, which you guys may have seen, audio broadcast. So if you long press this, you'll get into the new menu, which looks way better. And it's kind of been redesigned, kind of like Quick Share, where you have a send and receive tab, because you can start an Auracast broadcast, or you can also join one. So basically the way Auracast works is if you're in like a group meeting or a banquet, whatever, conference, you can broadcast audio from your device, and anybody who has Bluetooth headset can join that and use a password to do that. And you can start one, you can also join them. So here you can see you've got media and voice. So you can have two options for that. You can change the password, your device name. You've got share, so you can share your own audio broadcast and listen. So start listening, connect the device. You need certain headphones. A lot of headphones that are coming out now support this, which is great. And this makes it a lot clearer what it is, I think. And it's kind of nice. And this button right here will start your broadcast, whether you're doing media or voice. I think distinguishing between those is great because it also gives you different levels of quality depending on if you want to isolate voice or if you want to broadcast media to other people. So this makes it a lot easier for people to understand. And you'll also notice that this still lives in connected devices, but it's been made much more prominent. It's actually the third option right below Quick Share and Music Share. So it seems like Samsung is really trying to bolster Auracast, which is great because I think this is great technology and a lot of people didn't even know that this was there before. Up next, let's take a look at the redesigned phone application. So here you can see I'm inside the phone app. This is the contacts page here. And let me get rid of that just so you can kind of see how it looks side by side. You can see you've got duplicate contact suggestions up here at the top on One UI 8.5, which you can clear those suggestions if you want. Add contact here. The add contact page is a little bit different. They changed the way it looks. Add card, add pictures, a little more information. Important dates also shows by defaults there. They still were there before, so it's not like it's a huge redesign there. You also have that floating action button at the bottom, which like I said is a signature of 8.5. There's actually another suggestion up here too. What is it? Actually, it's the same one. I have a duplicate contacts and duplicate suggestions. If you go to search, the search has been redesigned as well. You can see you might be looking for, and they've changed that quite a bit here inside the app. If you go to the settings, you'll also notice that there are some changes inside call itself, particularly one big new feature that has been added, and that is this one. It's direct voicemail. So what direct voicemail does is when you're unable to answer, the caller can leave a voicemail message and you can send calls to voicemail from the more options menu on the incoming call screen. You can also set calls to automatically go to voicemail after ringing for a certain amount of time. You can still answer when the caller is recording their message and check and listen to voicemails in the phone app. So you see down here, auto send to voicemail, you can do 5, 10, 20, or custom time, and you can choose the number of seconds that you want. I don't recommend sending your wife, girlfriend, boyfriend to voicemail after 2 seconds, though that might not necessarily be a good idea, but it is something that you could do if you want. So that's really the only new big feature. If you go to the keypad here, you'll see there's some redesigns as well in terms of the phone, the way it looks there. Just overall, those floating action buttons being prominently with things being raised up a little bit more, a little more three-dimensional, giving some dimensionality to it. There's also a redesigned in-call screen as well, so let's take a quick look at that. So here is the redesigned in-call screen. I'm calling UPS customer service. You see you've got add call, message, Bluetooth, speaker, mute, keypad, and then over here there's an overflow menu for more where you can get record, call captions, hold call, add to contacts, send message, and take notes. So all of those things have been in the overflow menu. You still got call assist over here as well. Over here you used to have in this 3 dots menu the add to contacts, but they've changed the way this is organized slightly here. And if you're receiving the call, you'll also have that direct to voicemail option as well. You can see the squircle buttons. They've also added some gradient blur to those individually. So there are indeed some changes to the in-call menu with inside the phone app as well. When you hang up, you can see you've got things that look a little bit different there than they did before. All right, let's take a look at the brand new gallery app here. One UI 8, you can see it's a little bit different. Once again, the floating action button down here. Once you go into your albums as well, you'll notice the albums now have on the front of them like this little album cover with stacked albums on the front. You don't just have the front picture there anymore. You do have some new options inside here as well. If you go to Studio, you see the menu is slightly different. If you go to Studio, there's a brand new splash screen. Let me see if I can... it might not show the splash screen, I just realized because I already booted it up. Let me go here and show you guys the new splash screen because I took a screenshot of that earlier. This is the new splash screen within Studio when you open it up. So you'll see this slightly different than the one from One UI 8. I wanted to point that out. You also have the ability to add things to your private albums directly from the gallery now. You no longer need to go to Gallery Labs for this. So if you have a photo here and you go to the options, you'll see move to private album. Over here, that option is only there if you enable it in Gallery Labs. So you'll see here, I'll actually show you guys because there is one new Gallery Lab option as well in One UI 8.5. So if we go into settings here on both sides, we scroll down to Gallery Labs, you can see with One UI 8, private album was a One UI 8 Gallery Labs option. It's been removed over here, and there's a new option called collections, optional categories. and you can turn on these different categories, and then those will appear in your collections as well. So you can see search tab, that's already also been added by default. So these few here still remain from One UI 7, but private album is now in the gallery by default, in addition to the redesign that they have with the floating action button. Here's a look at the redesigned My Files. You can see some circular icons here. Once again, floating action button for search. If you go in here, you go in here. The search menu has also been slightly redesigned as well. If you go into the search settings, you'll notice here, all file settings access, that was previously here. So they just changed where that was inside the menu itself. If we go to settings for files, there's also some slight changes. You used to have edit menu layout. This has now become edit home in One UI 8.5. And there are some changes to what you can do here. You can change, see here, a category of recent files. Here you also have download internal storage. You also have over here for utilities, manage storage and trash, turn those on or off. And then also you can see Google Drive, network storage, and OneDrive, all of those in the external storage section. So they did redesign kind of things in the way they look in terms of files. You'll also see if you go into something like, let's see if we go into something where we actually have some files. You see on this side, let's go there. Let's go to internal storage here. You got the return of the yellow folders, which is like classic Samsung. They had that a long time ago. That's been brought back. I think it looks a lot better. I personally like the way it looks. Again, these are small, kind of UI changes, but along with the floating action buttons that we've seen in these floating menus, they make it look a little bit different and make it feel a little bit different in One UI 8.5. Next, let's take a look at a really big feature addition that we found that I actually really like. If you go inside your connected devices and go into Quick Share, you'll notice that there's a brand new option inside Quick Share, which is called Family Sharing. And so if we scroll down, it's right here under Allow Sharing over the Internet, Family Device Sharing. You turn this on, it's going to allow you to share all of your stuff, your camera share, your storage share, everything in terms of that you would share with your Galaxy device and ecosystem with those that are in your family. I would assume people you've invited using your Samsung account. Now, right now, this is not turned on, but we did do a deeper dive into exactly what this does because we were able to get some of the various pages from the code in the background. And we wrote a little article about this if you want to see what it does in depth. There really aren't any other crazy changes to Quick Share other than you do have NFC-based quick sharing now. You can do, if you have a device that has One UI 8.5, you'll be able to do NFC-based quick sharing as well. That was found. We found that in some code. But otherwise, most of this is very similar. You can see here, this is the same thing, just use Wi-Fi only. They just changed the way it looks. I mean, pretty much all these other ones. If you go who can share with you, there's a small change here. You have no one, you have contacts, you have everyone, and then you have your devices only in One UI 8.5, which is a nice little change for usability inside Quick Share. If we go into the Wi-Fi settings, so let's go into connections and go into the Wi-Fi settings. I'm gonna go a little deep here into Wi-Fi. So if we go into Wi-Fi, and then up here, we go into intelligent Wi-Fi, you'll see that there are some things that have been changed a little bit. You can see that over here, we have the prioritize real-time data that's actually been moved a little bit inside of the Connectivity Lab settings. So if we go into Connectivity Labs, you see a lot of the graphics and stuff still the same, but there are some changes down here. Switching mobile data faster is still there. Intelligent Wi-Fi handover. Real-time data priority mode, that was moved from outside that menu I just showed you. But we have this one as well, switching to mobile data with AI, which is a really nice feature. If you turn this on, you'll have two different options: intelligent link assessment, learn from Wi-Fi link data to intelligently switch to mobile data. Very cool. And intelligent network switch, switching to mobile data based on Wi-Fi handover history along the user's movement route. So this is great if you frequently switch between a Wi-Fi network at like your school or your job or whatever to mobile data at a certain time of day. It'll do a better job of determining when to do that. Go to Wi-Fi developer options, a lot of the similar stuff here. Down here, you see one new option here, which is show floating time, display floating time with hours, minutes, and seconds, and that'll show up there in the Wi-Fi developer options if you want. We went a bit more in depth with these options as well for Connectivity Labs. Some kind of more technical stuff, but it is a very nice thing to have if you're someone who uses that. I use Intelligent Wi-Fi and Connectivity Labs quite a bit, so definitely check out that article. I'll drop that below for a more in-depth assessment of that. Looking at the camera app, there isn't anything huge on the surface that I can show you guys, other than the fact that we have new support for various LUTs, also APV codec. There's some cool stuff for spatial recording. A lot of this is in the background in the code and hasn't necessarily been enabled in this early build, but people did some APK there. We did, some other people at Android Authority. There is one that I can show you that kind of goes along with this. If we go into the Pro Video mode, they're preparing, some of these changes. You can see here in 8.5, you've got a very similar setup. Everything looks very similar up here at the top, but you'll notice right down here, this thing right here, this little toggle, lets you turn off all the display information and just focus on your content, whereas over here, that does not exist. We can go through and I'll show you guys really quickly the other various options. You can see settings. Really nothing has changed here within settings. I haven't found anything crazy in terms of these various menus. You can see this right here. This is the effect strength here when you're in portrait, but that's been there for a while. Portrait photo, regular video. Just make sure I didn't miss anything. I have the grid on over there. You can see here all the same modes. Now we do have Expert Raw, of course, available here. I haven't actually downloaded Expert Raw, but I don't know. They actually kind of broke Expert Raw in One UI 8. I've been working on writing an article about that, but I don't know if that's going to work in 8.5. We'll have to test it. Night, slow motion. I mean, all this is pretty much the same. If you go in here and edit, I mean, nothing really huge to see on the surface of the camera, like settings and UI, like the big changes they've made in the past couple versions. Here you can see the LUT preview that you have in One UI 8.5. These are log videos on both sides inside the editor here. And you can see here in One UI 8.5, you now have inside the editor, in addition to some slightly different layout, you've got these different LUT options. It tells you about how to use these. Lookup tables help you quickly correct the color, set the mood of your log videos. And you can see you've got standard, blockbuster, coming of age, romance, and thriller for your LUTs, which is great for pro video people who do creating for YouTube like myself. This is something that you're going to find very helpful to have inside this pro video mode with One UI 8.5. Up next, let's go ahead and take a look at some changes in the modes and routines menu. We go into our settings. Here's our modes and routines. Once again, you see the floating menu that's right there, which we've seen throughout. Slightly different for the header. You also got, again, slightly different look for these cards. If you actually go into them, you'll notice here, you see how those cards look slightly different. Some of these have more differences than the others. If you go into the driving mode, for instance, you'll see here with driving, you now have this little card that helps you minimize distractions, gives you some good suggestions. You can also go to custom and basically do what you would do over there. It's still got the same car. Exercise is similar. It's got a little card for suggestions as well. Some of these are just giving you some nice suggestions now. Some of these are just giving you some nice suggestions of what you can do. And in fact, there are some that have multiple cards like the gaming mode, which is nice. So Samsung's just trying to get you started with routines because, modes and routines, a lot of people don't necessarily know how to utilize them if they're not a power user. Samsung's giving people more control to utilize these features, which is always good to see. Those are most of the user-facing changes that I found. I will say there's a couple other things, like I said, in code that I didn't even mention yet. There's some new changes for driving mode that make it easier to use. There's some epilepsy protection, photosensitive epilepsy protection that will be enabled that was found hidden in some of the code as well. Quite a few other behind-the-scenes things that aren't in this first build, but I did want to give you guys this look and let you see the new UI. Obviously, some of the big things are the quick toggles, the customizability of this. They added nice blur elements just everywhere that you can think of to the UI. You can see here, like I said, with the now bar, they've added things, just here and there that make it look better. And some people say maybe more like iOS, I guess, if you're someone who says that. But they did add those floating action buttons, and I think it looks good. I think it still feels like One UI. I said originally when I saw it, I thought it looked like iOS, but I kind of take back some of my thoughts after using it. It does feel very distinctly Samsung, and I do like what they've done with it. One thing I forgot to slip in here is that the notification open animation has also changed, and I wanted to show you guys that really quickly. Here's the notification open animation on One UI 8 versus 8.5. You guys can see the difference there. They've tweaked it, and I think it's actually a lot smoother. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, like, comment, subscribe. Again, make sure you check out SammyGuru.com. Join the mystery box crew if you're interested. I'll have more videos on this as we find stuff. Of course, we update the articles on the website as we find stuff and post new stuff every day. Marcus has a preferred source on Google News and Google Discover. We highly appreciate it. I'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks so much for watching.